Welcome back to the book club. I'm back from my holiday hiatus, and I'm bringing you a book review of The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is one of my favorite reads from my brief hiatus. I enjoyed it enough that I started reading the author's other trilogy, but this is book one of the Hierarchy series by James Islington. And this book is all about a society known as the hierarchy that has taken over the world, or what we know of as the world, and a first person single POV experience of somebody who is sort of an outsider to this hierarchy, more recently conquered by the hierarchy, and learning about how they're trying to stay outside of the hierarchy while also maybe trying to take them down from the inside. It's kind of unclear exactly what the main character's ultimate goal will be. I don't think even he knows what it will be yet. But we sort of have this like outsider, kind of infiltrating society type of vibe going on. There's also a bit of a magic school thing that happens throughout most of this book too. It's not quite magic in the sense that like Harry Potter is very, very magical, but it's like school for very gifted children who are not quite part of the hierarchy yet, but are being primed to become a big part of it in the future. And our character gets put into this school and goes through it and rises up through the ranks. The school is kind of run like a pyramid, and society is run like a pyramid. The magic system in this book is very interesting. It's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed it, because it's kind of unique, to me at least. You have society operates as basically a series of pyramids where there's governance, there's military, and there's religion, which are like the three sects of government. And within them, they each have their own pyramids that they operate. And these pyramids are literally pyramids of people, where those at the bottom, they do what is called ceding half of their will. So they basically give half of their will, or like their energy, their life force, whatever it may be, to the person above them in the pyramid. And so at the bottom, you have people called the Octavus, and 8 Octavus will cede their will to a Septimus above them. And then 7 Septimi, will cede their will to a Sextus above them. And then 6 Sextus will cede half of their will to a Quintus above them. So as you get higher in this pyramid, you have like exponentially more will to use, and this will is basically magic. You can use it to injure people, you can use it to like power technology, all sorts of things in this world. And our the magic school that we're learning about in this book, and also the character, is trying to stay outside of the system, but also the magic school people aren't allowed to use will yet in it. So we have this like interesting balance where there's this like magic system that we don't know much about, but it is like powering society, and it's something that is very controversial, especially to the main character, who thinks that it's like morally wrong and problematic. But also the characters in the book, most of the characters in the book can't actually use will because they're still like teenagers in this magic school. So we don't quite get like exposure to, they're not using how to learn. They're not learning how to use will within the book. They're just like learning things about the world. But there's people outside that we learn about, and like that's the way that we learn how will works. So I think that in future books we'll probably even get more uses of will going forward. But in this book, we mostly learn about how it is used to power technology, and how it can be used for evil as well. There's also some interesting, because of this hierarchical structure of society, our character, who's an outsider, our main character, has a lot of problems with this society. And so there's a lot of themes around how the decisions of the few are, so because of the way that the society is set up, with a lot of with literally pyramids of people, and people at the top are the most powerful and people at the bottom are the weakest, there's a lot of themes that are explored around whether people at the bottom of the pyramid are responsible for the deeds of the people at the top of the pyramid, because it is literally like they're giving they're giving magic away to the people at the top. So if the people at the top are doing crimes, are the people at the bottom still equally responsible? which I think, most people would probably say they're not responsible because, they're born into the society. They don't know anything different. They can't necessarily just leave it. So, like, they're not culpable for somebody 5 levels above them in the pyramid, like doing a bunch of, doing genocide or something. But there are characters in this book who have valid reasons for thinking otherwise, and are happy to slaughter effectively peasants, um, because they're part of this pyramid in general. And also, it's not just that they're like peasants paying taxes to a king who's doing evil things. If you kill the peasants, you're actually taking power away from the people up in the top of the pyramid. So it actually weakens the entire pyramid as a whole and actually makes it, maybe easier to take down somebody who is at this high pedestal. Um, so there's like a lot of interesting, social commentary things going on, which our main character, Vis, talks about a lot in the book, um, because he's like, trying to stay outside of this pyramid and also trying to figure out what people inside of it actually think, and how they operate. There's also, within the hierarchy itself, there's these three different, or government structures. There's like military, which has its own set of pyramids. I think governance is one of them, which has its own set of pyramids, and then religion, which has its own set of pyramids. And as you can imagine, they're not all just in perfect harmony. They're all kind of vying for power in their own way as well, and they want to strengthen their own pyramids. So it's not like we have a stable society that took over the world and is now just like abusing people, but people within the pyramids themselves are sort of like trying to vie for power against other people within their own culture. And our main character is sort of butting up against that as well, because he ends up being part of, one of these three structures and starts to learn about, the things that military or religion are doing to sort of undermine each other, and hide secrets from each other so that they can gain more power and all of this stuff. There's like a lot of, new society takes over, but also this new society has a bunch of problems, and uh, this person who wants to take them down from the inside is also becoming part of this society's internal struggles, and all of that stuff. So, I'm sort of rambling at this point, but I think that the themes in this book are very interesting. I like that, like, it's sort of, it's low magic in the sense that our character isn't like casting spells left and right, but also there is a lot of magic, innate magic in this world. There's a lot of like technological things. Um, I saw on Goodreads that this book was labeled like science fantasy. I don't quite agree with that. I think it's a lot more fantasy than it is like, some sort of like space opera, or like very science based, fantasy world. But I do think that there's some themes in that direction. It's not just like a bunch of people with swords battling each other. Fights are a lot more, you know, based on magic than about weaponry necessarily. So ultimately, I think that you will enjoy this book if you like books that feature magic schools. Even though, again, the magic school isn't them learning how to use magic, but it is still a magic school. If you like main characters that tend to not lose, I think that's maybe a downside to a lot of people. I still enjoyed it because I thought the main character was interesting, but one critique is that the main character seems to be good at a lot of different things and is able to beat people in a lot of different from a lot of different angles. You think that like being good at one thing precludes you from being good at another thing, but our main character proves us wrong and is good at multiple different things. I don't want to get into specifics. I know I'm being very vague, but just to avoid spoiling any of the plot of the book, but our main character is, a chess grandmaster and also a grandmaster at sword fighting and also a grandmaster at like poker or something like that. Which I know to some people is a turnoff. So like if you don't like an OP main character, then it may not be as interesting to you. But I think the other aspects of this book are interesting enough that I can sort of forgive those things, because ultimately the book is about more than just how good the main character is at things, but also about exploring. There's these secrets that we learn about that different parts of the government are hiding from each other, and our character begins to explore those things and find out what they're hiding from each other. This is like a world very typical fantasy where there's also some like ancient technology that they don't really understand that still exists. And learning through the main character what this ancient technology is and how it works um, is another angle that happens and actually sort of leads to the cliffhanger ending that we have. So that aspect is very compelling as well, despite our main character being a bit overpowered. You know, they don't necessarily win every fight that they get in, but they are very good at too many things, in my opinion. Um, but the like the world building and like this ancient technology and how it's going to come into play, you know, how this will can be seeded to other people, like that is not really explained yet. And it's also kind of clear that people don't really know. You know, there's these ancient devices that people can, you know, put their palm against and then start seeding their will to people, but they don't really know how it works. Like it's just some ancient technology that was around and they started using it in this way. But they're not like creating these devices to be able to do it. So there's a lot of interesting things that I think can be explored in future books, which I'm very interested in. Also, the way the book ends is just setting up what's going to happen in future books. I think the ending is it's again one of those things where some people may read the ending and be like, I don't know if the author can handle this. You know, I'm sort of losing faith in whether these sequels can be good or not. For me, I'm just going to, you know, inherently trust that the author can do something satisfying with the way that the book ends. I think that as a single book, it's still like a good read. So even if they kind of flub book 2 and however many other books come out of it, I still think it ended in a very interesting way. But it does set up there's a lot of big promises that the author ends on, and I'm not 100% sure if they're going to be able to deliver, but I'm very curious to see. So I think overall that's my thoughts on this book. I think you know, I'm curious if anyone else has read this. I know it's a very popular book of 2023. So if anyone else has read this and you have thoughts as well, let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all the other YouTube things, and I will see you next time.